Lynn Cullen live in 1 minute. Welcome to Lynn Cullen Live at pghcitypaper.com. Email your questions and comments to Lynn at pghcitypaper.com.
Hello and good morning to you. I'm Lynn Cullen, and I expect you know that. And because it's Tuesday, my sister's joining us to maybe spell me a little bit and insert her voice when mine is flagging. Hi, Suze.
Well, hi. I don't expect your voice to flag. I got such a good report this morning.
Yeah, I definitely am feeling a little bit better, but I mean, I'm far from right. But I started a regimen of antibiotics, which I always try to avoid, yesterday, and they already seem to be. There must be some underlying infection.
Obviously.
Yeah, at the base of whatever this particular thing is. Anyway, Suze is in the Pacific time zone. She's in Palm Springs, California, where she and my mom have gone, not being idiots.
And re-rented the place that we rented last year. So.
Very nice. Almost feels like home, I suppose. And anyway, thank you for joining us. I know it's, 7 a.m. your time.
You helpfully awakened me at 6 when you texted me.
Oh, really? Sorry. So, somebody emailed me yesterday, and I'm just going to ask you this right off the bat so we can... someone texted me and said that they went to see La La Land and almost walked out. They thought it was just horrible. I had the same reaction, almost walked out. I found out a friend of mine did walk out. All of us are women of a certain age, 50s to 60s. And I think that's really interesting. Mary, who sent me the note, wants to know if you saw it. I said you hadn't since when I talked to you last.
No, I haven't, and after these reviews, I'm
less inclined.
I'm not going to go to a theater. I'll probably watch it, on TV when it doesn't inconvenience me, and I feel better.
Okay, well,
if you know what I mean, the things that you watch at home, you're more apt to be contented with if they're lousy. Because
you're comfortable at home and you haven't. Well, I don't know. I mean, it's not like, obviously, it's not... I can't believe that this is going to be the best picture. This is going to be one of those things where in even 2 years, or certainly in 10 years, people will look back and say, what in the name of God were they thinking that they made that best picture?
Well, what was there a unifying factor in why all of you hated it?
No, we really didn't talk about it. Another friend, a male, said he almost left. He couldn't get through the first, the first scene, and then he thought it got better. So that by the time it was done, he was willing to say it was a nice little movie. I just thought it's just a bunch of self-referential fluff. And when you remember musicals and the singing and the dancing of, the old musicals, I am sorry, but Ryan Gosling and Emma Stone ain't no Ginger Rogers and Fred Astaire. It just seemed...
Or Gene Kelly and Debbie Reynolds.
Yeah, whatever.
Donald O'Connor.
Right. I don't know. Anyway. Did you watch the Golden Globes?
I had them on, but because of the time change.
You were eating dinner.
Globes are they're broadcast live. I was cooking dinner.
Yeah.
I got, but I did hear Meryl, and I did think that she was understatedly wonderful.
Yeah, I actually thought that Viola Davis's introduction of Meryl was the high point.
Incredible.
Yeah. So, well, anyway, that's that. This is a slight avoidance of getting into, the news of the day. As I drove in, I was listening to the beginning of the nomination hearing for Jeff Sessions to be our Attorney General, and here we go. It begins. The Republicans trying to ram through this Trump cabinet with the fact that they simply do not play by the rules that they demand everybody else play by. The lack of the ethics investigations of these people that are due in for their hearings this week. The fact that they might come out like 2 seconds before they walk through the door, which means that the people who will be questioning them will not have seen the information and will not. What is... Well, I said yesterday...
Well, and
go ahead.
Just listening to them say things. Well, as you said, that Mitch McConnell, for example, screaming that the American people won't tolerate Democrats standing in the way of any of the Supreme Court appointments. And how dare they not think that they're going to? And I'm going. It's like they honestly insist on alternate reality.
They don't recall that they spent 10 months refusing to even hold a hearing for a Supreme Court nominee? What is there? Anyway, I was saying that I have this Russian doctor who born, raised, entered young adulthood and everything in medical school in the Soviet Union. And he told me the other day, and the more I think about this, the more he's a smart guy. I absolutely trust him. He said, I look at these Republicans, he said, and they're exactly like the commies in Moscow when he lived in the Soviet Union. He said all they really care about is raw power. And principle, it doesn't... Ends justify the means. Anything is fair game. You do what you gotta do because you keep your eye on the prize, and the prize is power. And the minute he said it, I thought, my God, and that's why these Republicans are so enamored of Putin. They're all on the same page.
That's right.
Yeah. We've got a call. Caller, hello.
Hello.
Hi.
I'm calling in reply to your show yesterday. I couldn't get on because that nice gentleman kept going on and on at the end. But I was thinking about the people that live between the...
Can you talk up a little bit? You're real low.
Sure can. Can you hear me better now?
Definitely. Just keep it there.
Turned up the volume here. I was thinking about your show yesterday and asking us to be more compassionate to the people who did vote for Trump because of their situations. But I also feel, and I saw it in a letter to the editor today in the Post-Gazette, that they also have a responsibility to watch more than Fox News and to get their news from reliable sources and not Facebook, and not to listen to Rush Limbaugh and think that he has all of the answers. And I feel that even some of the people that are college educated, they don't use critical thinking skills, and they only read and listen to what they agree with. And they have a responsibility to listen to the other side because we're all going to pay for this.
Well, you know what? I just want to say I read this interesting article, and I cannot remember where, but I read it yesterday. And it's about research that has been done that shows that both sides, us and them,
Right.
are, believe me, we are the same. There's only about 1/3 of people who would call themselves progressive and only 1/3 of people who would call themselves conservatives who, given a choice, are willing to read the arguments that they disagree with. It was part of a long, study. And in fact, there was a few percentage points more of conservatives willing to read. Now, there was some money involved. You got $10 if you were willing to spend the time reading it. If you wouldn't spend the time reading it and only wanted to read your own thoughts, you only got $7. So if those $3 made a difference for some people, I can't imagine that that's true. Most of us on both sides are absolutely recalcitrant, and our ears are closed.
Not voting. 96 million people not voting. I think we should do what they do in Australia. I think they should be fined, and if they have a medical condition, they can't make it to the polls, then they ought to be able to do online or some other type of voting. But I think that these people that Trump is picking for his cabinet, he wouldn't be picking those people if more people voted and more people read the other side, like you say, and made
exactly
choice and not voted their party.
Right, and I want to say, as for the people who don't vote, as opposed to the people who do vote, but who vote without really vetting anything, who vote because everybody I know is voting for, which would you rather? I'd rather people who aren't serious about making a reasoned choice. I think might be better they don't vote.
Maybe so. This morning I was awakened by the window washers, and I heard one say to the other, "Did you vote for Trump?" And he said, "I sure did." And I thought, oh, what a way to start the day. I'll never use those window washers.
Oh, gosh. God, we're in trouble. Well, I hear you. I thank you. But somehow we got to figure out a way to move forward.
Absolutely.
Thank you so much.
Bye-bye.
Bye. Suze, what I was saying is we got to... We'll get nowhere in changing hearts and minds. If we just keep trashing all the people that don't agree with us, and that we've got to spend our anger, our action, everything on the Republicans in control, not the people who they bamboozled.
No, I agree. I mean, I've been saying since the election that this is no time for all of this. That this is time to mobilize and figure out an ethical and empowering way out of this.
Right, and we have to find common ground. There's a very distressing article in the New York Times today about the Women's March on January 21st. And about how the factions, certain parties that are putting that march on, are at each other's throats. And it's breaking down along racial lines a lot. And, we're doomed. This is the kind of thing. So they say, like, identity politics are not good, that they might have cost us the election. Well, here's identity politics keeping us, who are essentially on the same side, from even moving forward together.
Well, I mean, it's a women's march, and women come in all all of their diversity in every regard. So you should be having a diversity of thought as well as everything else.
Of course,
that doesn't make any sense.
Some, I guess, the internet, God help us. This is what's making people crazy. Some black woman in Brooklyn wrote, now is the time she was talking to the white women going, now's the time for you to be listening more and talking less. You should be reading our books. You should be understanding you should, park your privilege. You should this and that. Well, yeah, okay, maybe. But what is how does that help? And now a bunch of white women are up in arms, and some woman gets on and says, I've been a victim of rape and abuse, and I'm being asked to check my privilege. This is all those little niche, here's who I am, and my needs are. What is the inability to handle a lot of different things at one time? Yes, black women have it worse than white women, generally speaking.
I would just say they have additional issues that they wish to address that might not. I mean, this is exactly what you were talking about at the beginning, Lynn, that it is time to, to actually start listening to each other.
Exactly.
So, maybe the proper response to that first woman's email or posting that you put up was to say, I'm sorry that I hadn't heard that I hadn't acknowledged that was part of what we as all women want to stand for.
Yeah. Oh dear.
And of course, to the the assault victim. Well, of course, those are issues that we all hold. But yes.
Oh God.
But that's the point. It's time to put down that kind of battle.
Gotta look for common ground. Gotta look for common ground. Since I brought up the Women's March, I just want to, again, remind those of you that if you're going, and I hope you are, that George DeBolt Transportation, which got a bunch of us to a D.C. march when the March for Insanity, what was that? The Jon Stewart's.
The Jon Stewart March.
Yeah, and he knows how to do it. So he'll pick you up bright and early. I mean, in the dark, in Pittsburgh, and stop in Oakland and Monroeville and New Stanton on the Turnpike, and then straight down to D.C., and they'll take you home same day. Everything will be organized so you'll know where to go. He'll get you on it. So anyway, I'm going to give you a phone number, 412-461-9125, 461-9125, or look for DeBolt Tours, okay, online, and I'm sure you can do it. But he's got the buses. Caller, go ahead, please.
Yeah, Lynn.
Yeah.
I think it's the last election here was a fluke. I really do. I think this can be changed. I think we had a flawed candidate, and this the right circumstances. And then a third term for Democrats would be kind of hard anyway. So if we get a better candidate, I think we'll be in good shape. I think the numbers aren't that out of whack that we could grab that back. We just got to get the right person. And I know who could win it, but she won't run. And you know who that is, too.
No, I don't.
Michelle Obama.
Oh.
Yep. That's who could win it.
She doesn't want it.
I know she doesn't.
She'd rather, you torture her.
And that's premature, too.
Yeah, we don't know.
Even if she did want it, that's premature. There needs to be a
I think she don't have a checkered past like Hillary had.
No, we can't. See, here's the problem with the Democrats. Our party, and I've even said, I don't even feel like a Democrat anymore. The Democratic Party is a disaster. You tell me who we've got to put up. We don't even have any governors. We don't have any governors to put up. I understand that, like Cuomo in New York, one of our governors, is clearly trying to position himself. And Cuomo, anyone who knows him, says he is the biggest son of a bitch in the universe. You don't want Cuomo as the head of the Democratic Party. We have nobody. We think the only thing we have to do is win the White House every 4 years. Well, we've just found out that is a loser's game. The Republicans control the vast majority of all state legislatures. They own the governorships. They own the Senate. They own the House. They own the White House. They own the Supreme Court. And we're supposed to feel like we got our act together?
Yeah, you're right there. And I think Obama didn't do anything for the Democrats.
No, he was not a good leader of the party. And that's one of the jobs of a president. I mean, it's an impossible job. But one of the jobs is you are the political head of the party. But he was never into that aspect, ever. And he did not help in that regard.
Exactly.
So I hear you. I hope your optimism is correct, but I generally don't agree.
You just squashed him.
Right. I did.
Okay, thank you.
Bye. I guess I did.
You just took a perfectly happy, hopeful guy and told him, boo.
Yeah, you're wrong. So anyway, so after my doctor tells me this about the Republicans are just like the commies, and he's seen them all up close and personal, David Brooks writes the most amazing piece in the New York Times today. And it's not an easy read, but I got to tell you guys, he is saying the same thing. He is saying the same thing. Bannon, who is, I'm afraid to say, I think the President of the United States is going to be essentially Steve Bannon and Jared Kushner. What's his name? Kushner, the son-in-law.
Yeah, Jared Kushner.
Yeah, those are the two. Those are the two that got Trump. One's in one ear and one's in the other. Now, Bannon, this terrifying person, he's the commie. And Brooks makes that very clear. He has spoken with great admiration for one of Putin's main guys. They have the same worldview. They have the same worldview. Here is a quote from Bannon. We, the Judeo, leave me out of there, Bannon, you ass. They always throw that Judeo-Christian for some reason. Why do they do that? Jews don't want to be part of your friggin' world. We, the Christian West, really have to look at what Putin is talking about as far as traditionalism goes, particularly the sense of where it supports the underpinnings of nationalism. These guys are nationalists. They are not globalists. They're nationalists. The world has been there before. And we know what nationalism yields. It yields constant war. Does it not? It yields constant war. And Bannon really, he's an ideologue. He really, really believes this. He and Putin are totally on the same wavelength, as is he with the jerk that did Brexit. In all those people, and Marine Le Pen in France, these are populist, fascistic, communistic. It's funny how they come together as
they come full circle.
They come full circle. And he says Brooks is finding some hope in the fact that Trump is such an imperfect vessel for Bannon. He says this, Trump, though, is no Putin. Putin is theological and cynical, disciplined and calculating, experienced and knowledgeable. There was not one adjective I just said that could be applied to Donald Trump. Is that correct?
That's correct.
That is correct. When Bannon and Michael Flynn, this other commie-loving general, and others try to make Trump into one of them, into this revolutionary foreign policy president, Brooks says they're going to be taking on the entire foreign policy establishment. And what they'll have is Trump, who may sympathize with them, but is, here are his adjectives, inattentive, unpredictable, and basically uninterested in anything but his own status. So Brooks says, I'm personally betting that the foreign policy apparatus, including the secretaries of state and defense, will grind down the populace around Trump, will beat out Bannon and Flynn. Frictions will explode within the insanely confusing lines of authority in the Trump White House. And he says the result will be 1 million astounding tweets, but not, he thinks, any substantive fundamental change. But here's what he says that turns your blood cold. The larger battle is over ideas, whether the Republican Party as a whole will become an ethno-populist party like the National Front or the UK Independence Party. They're on their way. I think they basically are already. And if that happens, in this fight, the populists might do better. Because there is something malevolently forceful about their ideology, which does remind you of Marxism in its early days. There's Brooks saying, just absolutely repeating what my Russian doctor said. They're just like the Marxists. There's something flaccid about globalism, which is despiritualized and which doesn't have an answer for our economic and cultural problems. So there's the opening. In short, he says, I suspect Steve Bannon is going to fail to corral the brain of Donald Trump, but he may have more influence on the next generation. So I think this is what's happening now to the Republican Party, and with the ascension of Trump and Bannon and Flynn, is the most dangerous historical movement in this nation's history, I think.
Yeah. I mean, these guys just,
Oh, God.
they're a combination of so many different horrors that it's terrifying. And I, as a side note, find it amusing that over the course of the last few years, you've become a David Brooks enthusiast.
I really haven't. He drives me crazy. But he is a thoughtful man.
He's a thoughtful, what was once Republican.
You know what he is? He's an intellectual and a moderate and a pragmatist. And he's a good guy. You can tell he's an honorable soul. And very bright. But,
He's also very religious. You know, he's a real studier of the Talmud. I mean, he's very interesting. He's written about it.
Speaking of very religious, I want to say something that's been driving me crazy. If I hear Jared friggin' Kushner talked about once more as an Orthodox Jew, I am going to
throw up.
I am going to scream. Susan, name me an Orthodox Jewish man who doesn't wear a yarmulke. That's a skull cap, guys. Name me. Name me.
I can't.
You've never seen him in one. That is like, even my Reform rabbi, which is the liberal end of Judaism, wears a yarmulke all the time. I know lots of conservative Jews who will go out. It announces who you are, and it is a thing of humility before God. And how is he an Orthodox Jew? He's an Orthodox Jew who doesn't wear a yarmulke, and he, of course, marries a blonde Christian babe, and of course she converts. I'm sure she's very Orthodox Jew. Give me a break.
Well, but they have their staff keep a kosher kitchen.
They have their staff keep a kosher kitchen. Well, ain't that nice? He's as much an...
as far as I know, most, that the hallmark of a extremely religious person should be an incorporation of the ethics of religion, and therefore his father shouldn't have been in jail for, crummy business practices.
Tax evasion, setting up his own brother? His own brother-in-law or his own brother with a prostitute that he then... I mean, these are vile human beings, the Kushners. And if there's any religion that's informing any of their actions, I refuse to let them say it is the teachings of Judaism.
Right. We disavow that kind of
Some
representation
friggin'
of
Jew.
our people.
Jesus. That's a Jew. Jesus. That was a good Jew. Hey, speaking of Jesus.
He lives down to the stereotype of the people that he's associating with.
Mm-hmm.
Would hold of him. It's just awful. It really is.
So here's, speaking of Jesus, and I just want to get this in because I did enjoy this. So, man, you got to be some kind of a baby to be baptized in the Sistine Chapel by Pope Francis. But I guess some baby did get that treatment the other day. And during the ceremony or service or ritual or whatever they call it, the Pope reiterated his support for breastfeeding in public. And while he invited women to nurse their infants in the sacred space adorned by Michelangelo's masterpiece. And it says here at least one woman, while he was doing the baptism, was openly, publicly nursing her baby under the Sistine Chapel because the Pope said, ladies, you go right ahead because the Virgin Mary nursed Jesus in just the same way.
Duh.
How many heads are exploding on that one? Oh. And back to Jews for a second, and the wonderful Bannon and his racist followers. It didn't get a lot of play, but it speaks to what Meryl Streep was saying in her speech the other night when she said about Trump's behavior with the reporter that what it begets is bullying, violence, incites violence. It just takes us all down so that the worst feel emboldened to behave as badly as they want, which then is why we're reading things like no fewer than 16 Jewish community facilities were targeted yesterday in this country by bomb threats. These are Jewish preschools where little 3, 4, and 5-year-olds were sent scrambling all over the place. The FBI's involved, the police responded, buildings were evacuated, dogs brought in, all of this. The sense in the Jewish community, you would think the Jews would think, oh, the Muslims. The Jews in America don't think that.
No, we think it's Trump's support.
Right. We think it's Americans. And here's one guy who says, it could be anything from hate groups to a terrorist situation. I think it's probably more the hate group side. Because, know thy enemy. I think, and he said, and because this is how they work. This is designed to just be psychologically disorienting and scary and disruptive. And you'll see more of it.
Well, and honestly, there's a pattern going on here. I mean, this way we should be reading more of their online chat groups, because there was a anti-abortion guy in St. Louis last week that told an employee on her way in that the building was filled with bombs. And he was arrested, but I mean, it was just a threat. It's
disruption and fear. Yeah, right. Just have people back on their heels all the time, and enough lunatics do something that you can never discount. You can never discount it. It always has to be. Speaking again, I just want to drop back to Breitbart. Because I read, and I'm sure maybe you guys saw this too, but I find this particularly distressing because it again speaks to this coziness between the goals of Stephen Bannon, the president's chief advisor, and Vladimir Putin. Okay? Yeah, who can even believe we're saying things like that?
No, I can't.
Well,
But go ahead.
okay, Breitbart News had an article like 2 or 3 days ago that was headlined this: 1,000-man mob attack police set Germany's oldest church alight on New Year's Eve. And followed a story about, a bunch, of course, Muslim refugees terrorizing people, burning. And here's the thing.
It didn't happen.
No.
It's false.
Here's okay, now let's think about this. Here's Breitbart News, an American, although they're starting to get global. The guy who ran it until Trump pulled him into the White House is Stephen Bannon, who now has the ear of the president and his strategist. This is the guy who loves Putin. His rag is writing and putting out false news stories for a purpose, intended to...
Can we back up and not call them false news stories? Let's just call them lies.
Okay. Lies that are posing as a news story. They got the headline, they got the whole thing. It sure as hell looks like a news story. It's written like a news story. And they're doing it because they're trying to do to the German upcoming election what the Russians did to our election. They are spreading falsehoods meant to destabilize Germany's democratic process and targeting the incumbent Angela Merkel, who Bannon hates and who Putin hates, and who last time I looked was America's chief ally in Europe. Here you have the main assistant to the president to be trying to destabilize our greatest allies' re-election in Germany and doing the work that Putin, I'm sure, is also doing. They're working together. What don't Americans understand about this? I'm not making any of this up. Where does the word treason start coming in? Suze, are you there?
I'm here. I feel exactly the same way. It is treason, and I feel like I've been saying it for a while. They're just openly cavorting with
our enemies.
Our enemies.
Our absolute enemies, and trying to undercut our allies, because
but the people that supported him are the old anti-commie people. If you ask my mother-in-law, who she hates more than anybody else, it would be the Chinese communist and the Russian communist. And now that's the person that's supporting this person. It's amazing to me. It makes no sense. In terms, it's what it is how easy it is to bring people along.
Yeah. It makes sense when you realize that the people who have grabbed on to Donald Trump and are sort of going to help him through his presidency have an agenda. And that agenda is in cahoots with the two biggies, by the way, are his two advisors who need no oversight from Congress. That is Bannon and that is General Flynn. General Flynn is the guy who famously sat next to Putin at that big event in Moscow that was celebrating their state propaganda news service, RT. He came back with buckets of money that he got from the Russians. This is General Flynn, ladies and gentlemen.
Also, of the spread that Hillary is running a child porn ring thing.
Yes, yeah.
That was his
This is who the yeah. You've got to pay attention. And I think we've learned something. I want to thank my doctor, and I'll thank Brooks for underscoring it, because now I'm starting to see it much more clearly. There is no doubt about it. Bannon, Flynn, Putin. Okay? With Donald Trump as the clueless. You know, I'm even thinking, Susan, of that movie with Peter Sellers as, you know,
I know.
Peter Sellers, I'd be happier if he was the president, the Peter Sellers character.
Right. No,
because he was at heart a good person.
Well, and let's just go back to the Jared Kushner issue, which is by his appointment of his son-in-law, he's in direct
violation
of a 1967
Nepotism law, yeah.
That specifically states he can't do this.
Unbelievable. And did you see how Kushner's divesting himself of all his...
he's giving it to his brother and or his mother.
Yeah, that's not divestiture.
No, it's not.
And he is in a position, he'll still be doing business, and he'll be this powerful guy with no... I mean, oh my God, oh my God, oh my God. Back to the Office of Government Ethics, man, that office. This guy, his head is spinning. He keeps using the word unprecedented. No, that's never happened. But no, they have to have doesn't matter. It doesn't matter.
Well, listen, their head is spinning because they almost got disappeared 30 seconds ago. That didn't go over well, so there they are.
What do you mean? What are you saying?
Oh, they were. Wasn't it not a week ago that they were trying to put this particular ethics office out of business and strip it of its...
No, because that was a congressional one. No, I don't think that is the exact same thing. I don't know. I'm claiming...
No, maybe it's not. Yeah, you might be right.
Mine was the congressional office. This is the overall government ethics office, right, that signs off on conflicts of interest when people are entering the government.
And basically, just when we have ambassadors, picked as thank you gifts for support in an election, so like when George Bush made my neighbor in St. Louis our ambassador to Belgium.
Mm-hmm.
They need time to come around and ask the neighbors, what do you know about this guy?
Yes.
And is he
well,
okay?
that's true. That's true.
They haven't had.
Well, they've moved one. They've moved one of these hearings.
Her. Yeah.
The horrific, the woman who does not believe in public education, who will be the education secretary. She's got such a mucked up, muddled billionaire's portfolio that something like 100-plus corporations that all have the same address in Grand Rapids, Michigan or something, and intertwined, blah, blah, blah. God almighty. Yeah. Drain that swamp. Jeez.
I don't know why I'm laughing.
Yeah, well, because otherwise you'll cry.
Well, my nephew is here, who delivereth my dog to my to my house.
Yeah, so your dog is there with you now. He came via car.
He came via car. He is now laying across my legs. Actually, all 60 pounds of him. He can't quite figure this out, including the time change.
Oh, sure. That time changes are always hard on dogs. They don't get. I mean, they don't get it. Every daylight savings time thing, the animals go nuts. He'll get it together.
And he doesn't understand that this huge backyard that he seems to be living on, he has to be tied up to a rope because he can't
go
running all over it. And so he was following my nephew out the back and yesterday, and he went running after him, and then ran the length of his rope and got jerked back.
Aww.
But he's here, and they had an Adventures with Ernie trip across the United States. They did 2,000 miles together.
Isn't that nice? So Ernie should write a book.
He should. It could be called "I Like That Guy Better."
You think he likes your nephew better than you?
Yeah.
Well, he's more fun.
Right.
Well, maybe. They want to get together.
I suggested that, but no.
Jeez. No wonder he likes your nephew better than him. You're trying to get rid of him.
I'm always trying to give him away, even though I love him.
Excuse me.
I'm sorry.
I have not.
We're here, right?
Yeah. I have not said anything about the Fort Lauderdale gun thing on the show, but I've been wanting to just express, what I'm sure a lot of Americans are, I feel
so sorry for everybody.
Yeah, including the shooter, who tried.
Including
He tried to turn himself in before he did any damage. He went to the FBI and he said, "I'm hearing voices. I'm afraid they're gonna." He went. The part of him that said, "Oh my God, I'm gonna maybe getting dangerous here." And now they're talking. You hear the news report, and he may face the death penalty. And I'm thinking, what? He tried.
This guy on some medication.
Jeez, listen. Somebody walks into the FBI and says, "I'm hearing voices. I think they're trying to control me and telling me this and that and blah, blah, blah." Suze, I know you were married to a... It's a schizophrenic. He's mentally ill. You do not give him back his gun.
No, what you do is you lock him up. He's walked in and announced that he's a danger to himself or others. And how they can't put him in an emergency hospital is,
They say they can't. But they did bring him. Why would you not then? Okay, you bring him to a psychiatric facility where he is seen by psychiatrists who would immediately say, "Hey, this guy's schizophrenic. We're going to put him on, and he is mentally ill." Once he is said to be mentally ill by a professional, I believe even our gun laws say you don't give him his gun back. Don't they?
Yes.
Okay.
I think so.
Well, then why isn't there a
background check?
These people are dead. These people are grievously wounded, traumatized, because a schizophrenic with a good heart and a little bit of his head still there walks in and tries to give himself up and warn the FBI. Unbelievable. I feel for him. He tried to do the right thing. He really did.
Well, but the part that is upsetting to me is the fact that his family has, just very clearly said that about a month ago he lost his mind. I mean, I think that's his word, their words.
Right.
And I don't understand why, with everybody knowing about it, there was no help forthcoming for this poor young man.
Well, yeah, where was the VA? Whether he might have also had post-traumatic stress disorder.
It could have certainly aggravated it.
Right. It's just mind-boggling. And here, in that regard, is an interesting little thing. The New York Times spent a lot of time surveying experts in the field of gun violence. I mean, everybody from academics to police chiefs to this to that. And they wanted to find out what those guys who really do understand the extent of this problem, the complexity of it, what things they think are things that would work to start pulling back. And two things emerge, and that is requiring all sellers to run background checks on anyone who buys a gun. Duh. We do not have that. You can get guns so easily and without background checks. Okay, that'd be the number one thing. And then they say, and the other thing that would stop a lot of this stuff is barring gun sales to people convicted of violent misdemeanors. Don't wait for them to be felonies. Domestic assault, stalking, you don't get a gun.
Duh.
No, but, Suze, it turns out that if you ask the American people what they think about background checks and keeping guns out of the hands of people who've been convicted of domestic violence or stalking, do you know what percentage of the American people say that makes absolute sense?
Clearly, you're going to tell me it's
85%. 85%. Now, what does that tell you? That tells you that the Congress of the United States and that the state legislatures
are bought and paid for by the NRA.
They are not representative of the people's will. They are representative of the will of the NRA. And if that shouldn't, why does that not enrage people? A lot of the stuff we squawk and scream about, it's on us. It's on us. 85%? Even the least popular idea for gun control, a law that would limit gun sales to people who had to demonstrate a genuine need for the weapon. A fat chance in this country. That is the most unpopular. Everybody says, yeah. Do you know that was actually looked at favorably by 50% of Americans?
Well, it wouldn't be hard. You could just say, look around you. I want to be able to protect my home.
Yeah, exactly.
That's all you'd have to say.
But the thing is, everything you learned in civics class about how this wonderful country works and how our government works is upended by these facts that I've just laid out here. Because one would think that 85% of the American public supporting two measures, common sense measures, would mean they would get passed through all legislature. It would just go. It would obviously translate into immediate legislative action, because that's what a legislature is supposed to do. The will of the people. How corrupted. That's your swamp. That's your swamp as well. Oh, and I'm sure Donald Trump and the Republicans are going to do a lot to change that.
I mean, part of me is just waiting to, I'm just sitting here waiting to see what's going to happen next. At what point will the American public, if ever, realize what they've done? At what point will the sitting Congress decide that he's too scary for even them?
Well, I think that will happen, but I might be wrong. I just don't see him finishing out the 4 years, but I don't know. And it's not like so what? That gives us President Pence, good God in heaven. I don't know. I can't imagine.
Well, but if people keep saying that, President Pence, good God, I think who is actually going to be the day-to-day.
Pretty much. He'll have to do an awful lot.
So what difference does it make?
Well, it means that they've got to. If you have a President Pence, it means they could get another 4 years, maybe. They could have 8 years.
Well, it does mean that they could possibly, but it's somehow slightly less frightening that at least he's a thinking individual that would, listen to, that wouldn't start from the place where he's a traitor.
Yeah. What are you going to do on Inauguration Day?
I'm not watching.
No, don't anybody watch.
I'm going to be one of those people. I am absolutely not.
Do not. I keep tweeting out, do not watch, do not watch, do not watch. Did you see how the Trump people fired that old guy who has announced every inauguration? He's 89 years old. His wife just died. They fired him. All he does is say, and now, ladies and gentlemen, they took it away from him. He used to be a sports announcer, apparently still fully able, and he said he got so depressed, he was just... They even take down 89-year-old grieving widowers. Jeez.
Yeah, and also, just a little sense of history and tradition.
Yeah. Well, and did you see that, as of January 20, when he becomes the president, every appointed person, all those ambassadors, everything, have been told, you're out. Just pack your bags and you're out. Which means there's going to be embassies all over the world empty. There aren't any ambassadors anywhere. And even worse, other people who are appointed have been told out, including on January 20, a group of people who are responsible for ensuring that our nuclear capacity is under control and up to snuff. There will be nobody in those positions. That, too, is unprecedented.
Don't you wonder who they're going to put in there?
Vladimir Putin? Unbelievable. By the way, Suze, you said you wonder when his voters are going to... I did read some tweets yesterday from Trump voters. He is getting tweets from his own voters saying, hey, guy, I voted for you, but stop this tweeting, man. Come on, be presidential. He's getting stuff like that.
Well, I hope so.
Well, he is. He is. So you already got, before he's even taken the oath, you do have a lot of buyer's remorse, I think, on the part of people who thought, this guy's going to do it. And the people who thought, he's just doing this to run, he will pivot to be presidential, and they're seeing, oh my God, he's incapable of it.
Well, even the stuff with, his own executively produced show, The Apprentice.
Yeah.
Yeah. Whose ratings because people are refusing.
Yeah. I love it.
And then he trashes his own, one would think, handpicked.
You know what though, Sue? Somebody pointed out to me, Trump's a big aficionado of wrestling. And that's just a classic wrestling thing. It's meant, he and Schwarzenegger are buddies. It's just a, hey, and it's the trash talking that the audience loves. He's just doing his shit. He gets the money no matter what. That show came on my TV last night, and I heard it, and I raced into the living room and knocked it off. I mean, God forbid he would get even a 1/8 of a rating point for me. I have one quick obit I want to put in here. A guy named Willie Evans, who was a standout halfback for the University of Buffalo in 1958. He died the other day at the age of 79. And he was one of 2 black players on that team. That team won their conference, and they got their first bowl bid, which was the Tangerine Bowl in Orlando, Florida. And the place where that bowl was going to be played was run by the Orlando High School Athletic Association, which forbade blacks and whites to play on the same field. So when the team got down there, they were told that Evans and the other black guy, Mike Wilson, could not play. The coach got the players together, and he said, I'll leave it to you. And they deliberated for all of a few seconds before unanimously deciding to turn around and go home and not play the game. God bless them.
Yeah.
1958. And, I mean, that team had never been to a bowl game. This was the biggest to-do, and they stood behind their 2 black teammates, and everybody went home. And Buffalo was not invited to another bowl game until 2009.
Shameful.
And at that bowl game in 2009, some of the team, Evans and some of his teammates from that 1958 game that was never played were brought onto the field and received a long standing ovation. Willie Evans, whose white teammates, had his back. That's a little good news, huh? Even if we had to go back almost 60 years to get it. So I do have to say that I will not be here tomorrow. I have a post-surgical appointment tomorrow morning, and when the surgeon says no, that's when I need to see you. You say okay. So I can't do the show tomorrow, but I'll be back Thursday and Friday, and I bet Thursday I'll have a voice back. What do you think?
That would sound good.
That would sound great. Hey, Suze, thank you so much for getting up early. You don't have to, but
I know,
it's up
but
to
I will.
you.
I'll try and be more awake next time.
Okay. I've been known to do a show half asleep. Watch your wonderful president for the next 10 days, his speech tonight, his farewell speech, because you will not see his like again. Damn it.
I don't think I can stand it. Okay.
You gotta. Okay.
Yeah.
Bye, Suze. Thanks so much. Bye, everybody. See you Thursday.
Lynn Cullen Live, Monday through Friday from 10 a.m. to 11 a.m. and archived at pghcitypaper.com. The opinions expressed on Lynn Cullen Live are those of the host and do not necessarily reflect the viewpoints of Pittsburgh City Paper, Steel City Media, and its advertisers.